Welcome to University of Hoops, the show that gives you an inside look at the people making everything happen on your favorite basketball team. Today, we welcome Denver Nuggets senior video producer and 2023 NBA champion, Austin Carriere. Austin, welcome to the show, man.
What's going on? What's going on? Happy to be here.
Super excited to talk to you. Before we get into anything, I got to ask, what does that sound like, man? That's got to have a nice ring to it. 2023 champ.
Man, it's crazy. It's crazy. I obviously can't take all the credit. Shout out to the guys for actually putting us in that position, but it's been a whirlwind. It's kind of like a once in a lifetime opportunity. So, just grateful to be a part of it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of get into what it is that you do in relation to the team. Tell the people what a senior video producer does and specifically what you do with the Nuggets.
Gotcha. So, over here at Nuggets, like as digital department, social squad, I'm basically like the lead videographer, kind of content capturer, I guess I would say. I'm basically on every road trip. Every video mainly that you see that comes from like handheld camera angle is usually mine, or shout out my intern McKinley. But I basically do kind of everything. I make sure I'm kind of a little bit of creative director, a little bit of producer, a little bit of photographer, kind of everything that we kind of need. And luckily, I've gotten the opportunity to kind of be very hands-on with kind of curating our content and curating our look and feel for a lot of things. So I kind of do a little bit of everything, but mainly video to provide some cool videos to the Nuggets audience.
That's super exciting stuff, man. What's your favorite memory so far from working with the Nuggets?
So I got two. Obviously, one is the NBA Finals and winning it all. That's something that I think no one will ever forget from our experience, and it was super fun to witness. It was super fun to go through the ups and downs of, all right, we might win this series or win this game, but are we going to win it all? Or oh, maybe not. And then getting to the point where when they're positioned one game away, a couple seconds away, and it all kind of changes. So being a part of first ever, especially. These fans have been waiting 47 years for one championship. Just get a glimpse at it. And for us, for me to be here during that time is insane. Another favorite memory is kind of just seeing the at Nuggets social account grow. I think before this current crew that we have in now, it wasn't really stable. Fans didn't know really what to expect from at Nuggets. But now, there's kind of a certain expectations and feeling. So to see that we've kind of made an impact as well as capturing and uplifting the team as they went on a historical run, kind of been like all in one favorite memory for sure.
What does, speaking of, how you guys are capturing your content at Nuggets, for you and your role, what does a game day look like to make that all happen?
Gotcha. So I'd say the game's at 7. Most of us usually get there around 3 hours before game time, depending on if there's a walkthrough or anything. But first thing that has become a new thing the past couple of years, especially post COVID, is arrivals. So we need to see what the guys are wearing, what they're putting on today, see if they show a personality along the way. So that's probably the first thing. I'm there usually when the first rookie is there, just to see when everyone else is coming. So some guys like to come through the tunnel, some guys don't. It depends on everybody likes the media or does it. So that's the big first thing is to get arrivals. We usually flip those. We kind of have like a certain tandem that we do that, where it's like photos and video and that type of stuff, combining mixed medias. And then there's a lot, like every guy has an individual workout pregame. So it's sometimes, especially for bigger games, like getting some footage just to hype up the audience. Are you guys ready? Type of post to just keep to start to build the suspense for the fans of like, all right, here we go, it's a game going on. And then yeah, once uh they run out is a big moment. Fans usually there finally for that, and then that's kind of at that moment is when the game starts, where I'm like, all right, here we go. So they're running out doing their layup lines, and then tip off, and then during right when tip off happens is basically I sit down in my spot, and the fun begins, as I say. So we usually have a cadence of like flipping bigger things, especially at home. So basically every other time out, we're trying to flip clips that we just captured, and get them out usually on IG stories or posts on Twitter, all the platforms possible. So it's fast. It's very fast. It's also like a big learning curve for a lot of people who are not familiar with it. So it literally is like, we're sitting here now, I record something, I'll go immediately back to my computer and kind of just put it all together. So after that happens, games going on, depending on how the game's going. A loss usually equals less work probably because we can't post too much. But a win, especially a big win, it means a very fast, long night. So yeah, once the end of the game happens, we usually try to aim for like a good night post. Our fans usually love good nights and good morning posts. So if we can get a good video of Yoke walking out or a player walking out, showing some personality, some emotion, that's kind of the final thing that we're looking for. And hopefully at the end of the night we won. Content's perfect, we get some great shots, and then we get to all go home and do it over again.
Hey man, it's the grind and it's quite a fun one from the
Yes.
sound of it.
Yes.
Um, so I think that, obviously people are interested to hear, especially like on the content side,
Hmm.
what your job is like, when the lights are on, when you're at the games. But I think it's important, especially for people that want to pursue content, to hear about what the non-game days are like too, and what those days look like. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing kind of like on the non-game days, what your responsibilities look like.
Yes, sir. So let's say we had a game last night. It's kind of easier to walk through that game last night, and then let's regroup today. So basically, a lot of organization, and for me, is big. Like preparation is very very big for us. So as quickly as we can be organized, the easier it is to look back or make videos from that. So if Yoke has a big triple double, 30-point triple double night, then we probably want to edit or something, especially if it's a big game. So usually it's like getting sound bites, organizing stuff if we have like a feature that we're doing. So basically just a lot of preparation. As soon as I wake up, basically I'm make sure footage is uploaded, footage is, starting to be labeled, whatever it is, organized. And then let's get into things to fill that time, that whether it's a good time where fans are happy about a win from the past couple of nights or a winning streak, or it's a bad time where fans are mad at us, the account, just because the guys lost or something like that. We still need to figure out a way to connect with our audiences during those times. So a lot of strategy, a lot of strategizing, a lot of brainstorming. I'm huge on brainstorming. So even if I'm gonna take 30 minutes on my day, an hour, just to sit around and watch TikToks or just be on my phone for a little bit, just to gain some new ideas. To be like, all right, if we start, let's start looking ahead. So All Stars coming up. Big games are coming up versus another one seeds. What can we do differently to start just thinking about that as early as possible? So game day and non-game days actually like probably shape creatives to who they really are, because you can start pressing record and then be done, and then you just do the same thing every game. Or you can think about being very intentional and thinking about, all right, next game, even if we play anyone who's not necessarily very good in the standards of records or anything, how can we shoot differently? How can I think of something else to do when it does matter, when it is going to matter, for the bigger games, if we're thinking playoffs, all this type of stuff. So a lot of preparation, I think, is my non-game days. Or sometimes you just need to chill. Sometimes we've been on the road for 5 out of the 6 nights, you know what I'm saying, and you need to just come home and just take a chill pill and disconnect a little bit, but at the same time knowing in the back of your head, hey, if I'm sitting back watching something, I could get some inspiration from this way. So yeah, a lot of preparation, a lot of organization.
Thanks for sharing the details, man. That's
Sure.
super intriguing stuff. We talked a lot about kind of the nuts and bolts of what it is that you do. What would you say is your favorite part of the job?
My personal favorite part, and it's just kind of like the person I feel like I've always been. When the lights hit and it's time to, like, just like a player gets ready for a game, I kind of try to keep that same mentality. I'm a competitor at heart, so I'm always thinking, like, let's go have the best game of our life, that type of thing. Whether it's just shooting and pressing a little record versus playing out there, it's still like, just to getting up for games. Is definitely my favorite part. Just knowing, like, trying to anticipate what's going on, what's going to happen next. How can I get the best shot out of this specific moment? Because I think we all live for those big moments. I think we had a game winner, a couple weeks ago, and waiting for that moment when the ball's gonna go to Yoke, he's gonna take a shot. If it goes in, you may have to make sure you get that shot yourself. So that's probably my favorite part of it all.
Awesome, man. We've talked a lot about where you are today and what it is that you're doing. of course, nobody just starts out and goes straight to the league or straight to a big brand or whatever. So I want to transition into the next segment of the show that we like to call the journey. And I want
Mhm.
to get into your journey and I want to get into how you got your start and everything like that. You have a super intriguing story that I think a lot of people are going to take some good nuggets out of. No pun intended there.
That's good.
But take us back to what you went to school for
Mhm.
and why you went to college for what it is that you studied.
Gotcha. So yes, I'm a proud grad from University of Oklahoma, and I actually have a degree in biology with a focus in herpetology. So herpetology is the study of reptiles and amphibians. So basically, to make it very simple, I wanted to be a researcher that traveled the world and like kind of discovered new things, or just gain new information on reptiles and amphibians. So I started, and by the freshman summer, I was in the Philippines for a month, basically doing a survey on a mountain in the Philippines where we kind of hiked up ourselves 6 hours and like just stuck our tents down and kind of just caught snakes and frogs and turtles every night for a month straight. So that's kind of like a good outlook on how my life was at that time, whether it was during the summers out of the country or during the year in around Oklahoma. We're doing a bunch of surveys, just catching stuff, just doing research. My first big research project was on water anoles and how like if gender had an effect on behavior. So not to get too nitty gritty, but that was just kind of a big thing where I did a big study on that and found that females were moved more than males in a specific area, specific seat, that type of thing. So it was very like in-depth scientific. And luckily my mentor was writing books and publishing articles. And he had a camera with him to take photos of these crazy animals. We're catching king cobras, we're catching green vine snakes, we're catching crazy stuff. And I'm just, trying to be there along for the ride. But my mentor at that time was taking photos and made sure to, take these photos to make his own guidebook in the future. And I was like, oh, that's a really good idea. So I was an AP studio artist in high school, so I can draw, at least used to. I haven't drawn too much too recently, but I wanted to be able to take photos, and I was getting a minor in art. That was the main reason. So I wanted to take photos of the animals I was catching, and then draw them, like just to make it an art piece type of thing. But I think I got my camera sophomore Christmas, and friends are sometimes the sometimes get the best out of you, right? So as soon as I got a camera, my friend was like, "Bro, you want to take some photos of me?" And me just starting, I'm like, that's not really the point why I got this camera, but sure, why not? Use my friends. I love hanging out with them. Let's go take some photos. So it became much more of a thing to be like, hey, Oz, I'm free this weekend. Let's go take some photos. And one of my best friends was dating a volleyball player at the time, and she was like, hey, we're looking for student photographers to get us more content. You want to try? I was like, sure, why not? At that time in my life, I think I still am kind of where like I just want to try anything and everything. Why not? So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, started shooting some OU volleyball. Um, and then by my junior year, I started working for like a newspaper, like a student newspaper. It's called the OU Daily. And then got to sports. So I was, to like real credentialed sports events. So started to shoot a little bit of basketball, started to shoot a little bit of football during like the Kyler Murray days, which is, a blessful time to be there. But just to start to do a little bit more and more, and then start to unlock and get recognition for like having solid work. So by my senior year, I'm still studying snakes in my main time with taking photos in my free time. By senior year, I started to work for OU Athletics, and OU men's gymnastics at the time was the number one team in the country, had produced probably 90% of the Olympians at that specific time. And they were just like, we don't get a lot of pub because it's men's gymnastics. Try whatever, do whatever. Here's video, here's photo. So I took it as a challenge. And I think I kind of like that about myself sometimes, is that I can take something that is new, scary, and just go try it. Why not? So even more YouTube. I became obsessed with YouTube. It became obsessed with watching it every day when I'm not, researching about snakes or anything. And then start to build a brand, start to build more of a brand. Start to give fans, and mainly it's just like families, right? But it's something cool for people to see of like their sons, their cousins, their friends. Man, that's a really good video. That's creative content. So I wanted to be very creative. I wanted to start that base of like, hey guys, let's just have some fun with it. And obviously OU football was going through a great time. And they were getting all the pub, they were getting all the cool videos, but I was like, how can I bring that energy to a lesser named sport at this time? So after that, it was time to graduate COVID year actually. So I didn't even get a full season with OU men's gymnastics because COVID year cut it short. So I'm crying in there with the seniors, like I've been there all 4 years and that type of stuff. But it was like, man, I just got started, building something, and now it kind of cut short. So graduated COVID year. I didn't want to do any more schooling. I didn't want to write any more papers, publish articles. So I was like, you know what? I was going to do a PhD program with herpetology, and I just kind of last minute was like, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm just take a risk, stay in Oklahoma for an extra year, and basically help out with OU athletics creative department, kind of like a GA ship. But it was only like 20 hours a week, and I was just trying to figure out how to do things. So learned a little bit more, started working with OU softball at this time. And OU softball was in the middle of their crazy run, where they go back to back to back. I think they're right now. But it's like the first year that they won or like returned to champions. And it was super fun. I got to travel with them a little bit. I got to just follow them around and again give kind of a lesser name sport a little bit more vibe, a little bit more creativity. And the girls loved it. The higher ups loved it, and there was getting a lot of traction on stuff. So I was again feeling like I was building something and help elevating something to the level it needed to be for eventual 3-time national like back to back to back. So started applying more and more to the creative space jobs, and I was down actually to Seattle Seahawks internship and an internship with this media production company called Fresh Tape Media. Fresh Media is based in Denver. I basically just kind of applied to them because I saw them on my Twitter feed. So applied to them, got accepted, and eventually I just had a gut feeling that I should go with this media production media production company that I don't know anything about, in a place I've never been. I even thought about being from New Orleans originally, so never even thought about going to Denver, Colorado. Over an NFL, like bona fide. A lot of people would have been like, I got to go to NFL. Why wouldn't I? But it was just a feeling. So took a risk, went to Fresh Tape Media, and then Fresh Tape kind of kept blossoming me and gave me like the techniques and the skills and the real things I needed rather than just watching everything on YouTube. So I got to they do have crazy contracts. So like NBA, Twitter, NHL All-Star. Like I started to work these big events and learn more and more. And I'm like, man, like this is obviously like this is somewhere I really can see myself being. So the internship was supposed to be 3 months, got extended to December, then got extended to May. So I was grateful to be around, keep being around, doing cool stuff. And then randomly, one of the engineers for Fresh Tape Media, her boyfriend loved basketball, lived in Denver, and we wanted to hoop one time. And she's like, "Hey, you should hoop with my boy." I was like, "Bet." So I hooped with my boy Noah, and he has actually started an internship with the Nuggets around the same time. We're all just working together. So we hooped a couple times, hang out more and more, and then by March of 22, he calls me randomly. He's like, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you." I was like, What's up, bro?" He's like, "You want to come work for the Nuggets?" And I was like, wait. You can't just like throw that on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, I've been doing some crazy stuff for Fresh Aid Media, but the feeling of working for an NBA team is just a feeling that, everyone wants to feel in this field. So I had to take some days to think about it and talk to my mom, talk to my pops, talk to everybody. And a lot of people were just like, why not? You're young, do what you love and keep going. And I was like, of course. So let's do it. So ended up working the last month of that Warriors won the championship that season. Working the last month of that, and was kind of just given the keys. It's kind of like, hey, we haven't had much of a foundation. We're there's people leaving and coming and going. We trust you to kind of just do your thing. So luckily I got to build another foundation, and now on the top level. And it was kind of crazy, a fun start. Obviously, the shock value of working with like MVP and like these big name players is the learning curve of it. But then once we had that season, had a kind of a longer summer because we lost in the first round, and I got to start to let me start rebuilding this ways and different cameras, different gear. And we were kind of more prepared for this last season than probably have ever been in this department. So obviously we go through the season, stuff is happening like crazy. And then we somehow make it to the finals and win it all. And we actually started a long form series on our YouTube at the beginning of the season called Road to Gold. And luckily in its first, inaugural season, we win, we complete the Road to Gold. So it's been a long journey to get here. But man, I'm, grateful for every step along the way.
Hey, I loved watching that series. Even as a non-Nuggets fan, like
Yeah,
it
appreciate
was
it.
it was it was good. It was good stuff. And you can tell like that attention to storytelling really comes through whether you're, in the NBA or the NFL or college or when you're working with a team, because that's like what it's really about, I feel like, right? Is like not like necessarily what happens, but like the story behind what
Mhm.
happens.
Yeah,
So it was really cool. I always love seeing teams do that, and it's so cool to learn that you were the person behind that. That's
it's
awesome.
fun. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I appreciate you taking us through your whole journey, and I think that a lot of people will, especially that work in content and like want to get to where you are, will take a lot from that. But I want to ask you specifically to sort of round out this segment. What is the biggest thing that you think that you have learned that you would sort of then advise to other people through what you've gone through to get to where you are today?
Mm. So first, I think mindset is big. I think it's just be open-minded, but at the same time, be like focused on what you want. Don't don't just give up an opportunity or go towards opportunity just because you think it'll get you get you a specific way. Make sure to like focus on where you want to be, what you want to do, and kind of just study it. Be at times obsessed with it. I think the biggest thing that I've learned in general is that just hard work kind of pays off. Attention to detail and being intentional, being focused on something pays off. I think that I've obviously had a very unconventional route, but I wouldn't have gotten here to the place I've gotten now if I wasn't watching like every second of a YouTube video or watching other people's work. And whether it's you think it's just oh, let me scroll past, it's probably cool, but sometimes you need to just take a second and really appreciate someone else's work to then start to appreciate and look forward to something. Yeah, I think just learning, just being adaptable, being aware, is kind of another big thing that I've had where I like follow a lot of people just because I want to see what everyone's doing. So as much as you're aware, I think it's easier for you to start to open doors even for yourself because you know what's going on, you know what people are doing, you know what type of content is being made. So just having that foundation of awareness, I think, goes a long way.
Absolutely. And kind of sticking with this topic of advice that we got into here with this last question, I want to transition into our next segment of the show, which we like to call hitting the books. And I kind of want to focus on,
Mhm.
just that, hitting the books. Like what would you tell people that want to get into this? So more specifically, the first thing I'm going to ask you is what is your best piece of advice for somebody that wants to reach specifically the NBA from like
Mm.
what you've garnered in digital media?
Mm. Um, I think if you want specifically to go to the NBA, obviously familiar make yourself familiar with basketball, right? So that means shooting. I think I've shot in like a million AU tournaments. I've shot, little kids, big kid, like whatever it is. I'm just getting myself familiar with basketball in general because now, no matter if it's a little kid shooting or Nikola Jokic, I know kind of how the ball's gonna bounce. So I know how my shot's gonna be even more like sharper than just trying to guess what's going on. So watching film sometime, watch your own film, watch what's going on, watch how you can better predict what's going on. But more like behind the scenes route, I say follow each and every single one of your favorite NBA photographers, content creators. And if you're shooting for high school right now, I want you to bring that same flavor that your favorite videographer is bringing to an NBA team or a brand or whatever. Start to try to bring that in your own style, in your own way, in your own influence to whatever you're shooting right now. I think that's a big thing when we look for interns, when we look for employees, where we're like, all right, we understand that you can press a button and shoot. How are you going to put your own creative spin on the kind of simple game of basketball at times? So I think for me, like as an employer, as just someone who looks and looks to help everyone. It's like how is this kid different? You know, how does this person bring their own flavor, their own expertise? Everyone sees through the camera a different way. How is this kid bringing a little elevated way rather than maybe just being copying someone else, or being very raw. So yeah, I think that's it. I think it's following. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to DM. I like anybody can answer a DM. The worst that you get is a no response or a no, and then you keep moving. There's a million people out here in this field that'll help you out. That'll give you the guidance you need to take your work to the next level. And obviously, connections is a big thing, right? Connections is always a big thing where shaking. You never know who you're talking to. You never know whose hand you can shake that can totally change your life. So I definitely make as many connections and don't be afraid to. I think a lot of young creatives be afraid to they work for a small school and be afraid, man, I will never get the exposure that these big schools get. But like I said, if you're aware of this stuff like Gondola, which is a portfolio kind of creator at this point, where we're all just trying to get the same looks, we're all trying to get just credit for being creative, executing big ideas. So always have big ideas. Never be afraid to talk to anyone, and do it for the sake of, I know this is kind of very cliche, but do it for the sake of something you want to do. You know, when you wake up in the morning, are you thinking about a shot, or are you thinking about this? Just go shoot it, go try it. And it'll all come together later, I promise.
What's the best piece of advice that you've gotten from a
Mm.
colleague at the Nuggets?
Oh, I think use every experience and every opportunity to its maximum capability. Someone once told me, one of my mentors once told me that I shot the NBA finals, right? Anyone who's shot in NBA finals, you can use the footage. I can probably use the footage from just that series probably for the rest of my career and get enough looks and get enough people being like, wow, like he does good work. Um, and maybe get an opportunity off a job opportunity, whether it's freelance or a full-time opportunity. I think maximizing. And so if you only get one chance to shoot an NBA game, shoot it like you have unlimited, ammo in a certain sense, where you always record everything, be thinking about every single little thing, and be fully. My big thing is just being locked in, be fully locked into the moment to which to maximize anything, creativity, thoughtfulness, storytelling. I think that's definitely the biggest advice that I've gotten, because that now, like, games get repetitive, obviously. But when I go back and make my reel, I think some of my biggest shots were from, games where we're in Detroit playing the Pistons and they're on their losing streak. But luckily, even though it's whatever the team is, I took that opportunity to be like, you know what, I need to go find my best shot, some great shots. And that always takes, because like anyone, probably a lot of people have gotten the shots that I've got from the finals, because there's a lot of cameras there, a lot of people with their phones, right? Even. But what about those shots in between? Or like, what about those shots for the non-big games where no one's really paying attention? How do you perform in those? I feel like is a big way to define yourself as a creative.
What's one thing that you know now that you wish that you knew when you were starting out in this space?
um, I think technical things like, bigger cameras, better equipment. I think I was early on, I was just doing the best I could with the stuff that I had, right? And I didn't even know any difference until I started to upgrade, started to be exposed to more things where you're like, oh, I should have been using this for much longer than I didn't or did. Um, so I think getting a deeper dive. I think I was stuck on a lot of the gimmicky things early on, the edits and the transitions and those type of things, and I wasn't necessarily as focused as I needed to be on maximizing my equipment, the gear, because I think I probably could have done even better work. But also it was kind of like the day and age. It was kind of very trendy to do all the transitions, and at least also like trying to get lower name sports more pub. You need a little bit more gimmicky things. So I think there's a better balance of gimmicky, technical, and like pure storytelling. It's a tough balance, trust me. But I think if I would have taken advantage of that early on, I would be even better than I am now, in my opinion.
For sure. Great advice, I think, and super interesting perspective. Um, what is something that you sort of like when you look back at everything that you have done?
Mm.
What's something that you think, whether it be like a project or a moment, that you think you're really proud of?
Hmm. I think most recently for our media day, I like bargained and negotiated for my own set basically. So probably the previous media day, I kind of just did like a recap, right? I just followed the players around, kind of very simple, very this and that. But this year, I wanted to challenge myself and kind of the whole crew of like, all right, if we get our own set, how do we make something meaningful that no one else is getting on media day? So my big idea this year that actually like was scrapped and then somehow just kind of came back to life. It's called "What Does Basketball Mean to You?" And I got to, sit down with each player on our squad and kind of just ask them a simple question, and it can mean very different things to a lot of different people. And it's also an answer that not a lot like reporters don't ask that post game. Reporters don't ask that. Whenever it is, they're worried about the moment, the game, how you're playing. But not a lot of people know how Nikola Jokic feels about basketball. They always think that they know about how these players feel about basketball and how much it means to them. But sometimes you got to let people tell their own stories, and you just be a vessel for it. So with that, I wanted to be very specific about it. Um, I had like soft music behind it, and I wanted to be very touching. So we kind of like it was kind of a whirlwind trying to execute it and planning for it and all these things. But once it actually happened, I feel like everybody that was a part of that set executed it perfectly. And it's actually probably one of our highest, like produced pieces on the year. The NBA caught up, like reposted it. NBA has it on their app, and I think it has a very positive, reception from the crowd, from our audience as well, because they're like, whoa, like no way, like this Nikola Jokic is sitting down and saying this, and access is obviously a big thing, but you got, like I said, maximizing every single thing you can. So knowing I only get 5 to 10 minutes with each player, their answer doesn't need to be long, and it'll still have that same impact. So what does basketball mean to you is very big to me because I got to sit down, with MVP, top players in the league, and just ask them a simple question and let them talk and let them say literally whatever they wanted to say at that moment. And you don't really get that often. You don't get players raw emotion, raw feelings, raw answers. So that's a big, and it's kind of shown our evolution of a creative department, digital department, because I think 2 years ago we wouldn't have gotten that. We wouldn't have gotten the same answers. At least we may have asked the same question, but it wouldn't have been the same comfortability that we got from the players. And that's just being there with time and doing good work.
It's super cool that you mentioned that because I feel like that same concept is really what uh, I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do with
Mm-hmm.
this show, right? Is to get people to open up and sort of share their experiences and share their why, which we'll get to here in a
Mm-hmm.
second as well for you. But I just think that, whether you're doing an interview show like we're doing here or like you're doing sort of on the content side with players, it just goes back to that same theme that we talked about earlier in the show. It's not necessarily like, and I'm not trying to like hate on any reporters or
Mm-hmm.
that side of it, but like they have their job that they do, which
Yeah.
is all about capturing the moment and who's playing well and who's not and everything. But I think there's something super cool about being on the more creative side and being able to focus on, you know, why people are the way that they are.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, like you said, like nobody's gonna ask Jokic like like why do you love basketball?
Yep.
And I think that again, like it's a similar theme to what we're trying to do here. But I
Mm-hmm.
think on our show, we're focusing more on, people like yourself that don't have the platform that a Nikola Jokic would have. Because obviously, a lot of us start out playing basketball or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
we want to make it here or make it there, and it doesn't work out. So we are like, all
Yep.
right, how can I get to the NBA in like another way? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So super cool stuff. And I think that it's applicable whether you're working for a team or you're doing an interview show like this or really anything in the creative field. I touched on it a little bit sort of in that response that one thing that we want to ask all of our guests on the show is what is your why? Like, why do you think you're doing what you're doing? And I know that working with a team has its perks and it has its parts of it where it's a grind. You mentioned earlier the
Mm-hmm.
travel and sometimes being in 5 cities and 6 different nights and things like that. But like at the end of, this past season, when you sat down and as you go forward here into another season, like what would you say is your why behind what you're doing?
Man, that's obviously a big one, right? I think it started I think it started as something very selfish. I think it started my why. I think when I started all this was that I wanted to just make cool stuff for myself. I wanted to kind of be associated with making cool stuff, and whether that's Austin Carriere, or my Instagram account in general. I think it's evolved as I've gotten more experience, as I've had more opportunities and more experiences, to be an example. I think as as a kid growing up, I was always the one in my family to like always trying something. My mom and I were always to try something new. We will move somewhere, we'll live somewhere, we'll go somewhere. I think in a city like New Orleans, especially where a lot of kids just get stuck in the same cycle, same thing, and it's hard to even envision a world outside of what you live every day. So I think for me, it's like being able to, I think I would never turn down a podcast. I'll never turn down an interview about myself, only because I would love for anyone to hear that, hey, like, even if I've had this, I wanted to be a herpetologist since I was in middle school, sixth grade. Steve Irwin was my biggest inspiration. And I couldn't even at that time envision a life where I wasn't. So I want people to be able to be thinking about, hey, I may love this for this specific moment. I may think this is my passion, my life, but things can change, and that's okay. It can change to things that you would never envision. You sharing experiences, you sharing emotions with your family, your people that are closest to you, in ways that we would never forget. So I think a big thing is like my mom, my mom and I have always talked about, hey, I want to go to LA. I want to go to this. I want to go to that. And being a young kid from New Orleans, it was just never realistic, right? But now my mom always is like, man, I would have never thought we would be here. My mom comes for Christmas Day games, that type of thing. Like, think about where we were, many years ago, and how hope was very different at those times. So I think my why is just to give people hope, give if anyone hope, give myself hope, really, mainly first to be like, bro, you can do whatever you want. If you just go do it. And I get upset, I think, at people at times for not going get it. And not everyone is a go-getter, I guess I would say, but I think if everyone was a go-getter, the world would be a different place, right? If everyone just said, woke up one morning and was like, hey, I just want to go be a videographer and want to go make cool stuff, and didn't feel scared or be like, man, it's a big risk and I have to take away stuff from here to do that. And just be sincere with it, be genuine with it. I think it is kind of the key to my life, and how I want to inspire other people and other kids. Young Black kids from New Orleans are not obviously thinking about working for the Denver Nuggets. They're thinking about a lot of probably other different things. So for me to be, hey, a point, representation, as that gets spread around a lot, is that like, hey, Austin can do it, even though Austin did this and this and that. Like, I think all my like accomplishments have been because I took a step in this direction rather than just waiting or being complacent. So yeah, I think my why is just to expose people to different lives, new things. Don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to take new risks, because it can change your life and everyone's around you. My brother is a big basketball fan, and for him to be able to be like, man, my brother works for the Denver Nuggets and can tell his friends that and can come to games whenever I'm in town, I think is more than me going to travel. Like, I feel that more, that has a bigger impact on me than me going and staying like, 5-star hotels and traveling with the team. Like, obviously that is amazing and great, but also like, it's just me. I mean, I'm a small person on this big planet. So as much as I can influence and help and interact with other people on this big planet, I feel like is why I kind of do the things that I want to do.
Amazing stuff, man. Appreciate you, Austin. Before we end, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I don't say shout out to everyone who watches our content, interacts with it, comments, swipes up, even if it's just an IG story. It goes a long way. And this is obviously like who we're doing it for. At the end of the day, we're not doing it for Nikola Jokic. We're not doing it for these players because they have their own lives and want to impact people their own ways. We're doing it for the people who appreciate, just being on social every day. I know there's a lot of burner accounts and a lot of, super fans who are like, man, I can't wait till the Nuggets post this, or I can wait till the Nuggets post that. And I think as employees, as staff, we get caught up in, man, how do we reach other people? How do we reach people who've never watched our content? And sometimes get complacent with the people who are around us and watch every single piece already, our core foundation. So I want to say shout out to Nuggets Nation. Shout out to everyone who's ever, like the video or given a view to help us, get to the place we are now.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Austin, for joining the show and telling people about not only what you do today, but how you got to where you are, and also, giving out some really invaluable advice. So we appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, man. I can't wait to see how far, this goes.
Absolutely, man. And thank you, the viewers and the listeners, for following along to this week's episode of University of Hoops. This is the show where we take you behind the scenes of your favorite basketball team. Today's guest, Denver Nuggets senior video producer, Austin Carriere. Thank you again so much for watching and listening. And we will be right back here on the YouTube channel at Univ Hoops. That's at UNIV Hoops. That's on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, wherever you get your content. We're posting stuff every week. We have another episode coming out next week with somebody from the Houston Rockets, so stay tuned for that. I'm Blake Atwell. Thank you for tagging along, and we will see you next week.